Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the domain and range of graphs, mostly focusing on the domain. So use Google, or maybe you remember what's domain and what's range. So domain are your x values. Let me write that a little clearer. These are along the x-axis right here. So this would be your domain. And the range are your y values. So that would be along the y-axis. Y and f of x are the exact same thing, just different notation. Today we're mostly going to focus on the domain, but it's good to know the difference. Okay, let's look at an actual graph. What is the domain of the function to the left? And the domain are all the x values, and there are lots of x values here. There's one here and here and here, all along the entire line there's x values, but that's not an efficient way to describe the domain. Whenever we describe a domain, we want to give a start and a stop, if possible. So based on this graph, that starting point and that stopping point, and noticing that each choice has a start and a stop, which one of these choices goes with this graph the best? And here's how we can do this. Knowing that this is 0, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, that's going to be -4. So I get rid of any choice that doesn't have -4, and it's really just choice B that's left, and I count forward +2. So that is going to be my answer, from -4 to +2. This is the exact same question, but it's closer to what you would see in the math community. Whenever you're asked for the domain, they might give you inequality notation. So the domain is your x, and your inequalities are your less than, your greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. But we're going to focus on this symbol, or just less than. So it's the same exact answer. I'm still starting at -4 and I'm stopping at 2. There's only one choice that has those two numbers, but I do have this inequality symbol instead of this one, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But notice that that is the same exact answer as this, just this one doesn't have inequalities and this one does. Here's another graph. The domain. I'm going to first write this out in English, and then I'm going to put inequality notation. So I'm looking for the start and the stop. So my start is always the one that's more left, and my stop is always the one that's more to the right. So what do you think my start and my stop value is for my domain? So I start when x is 1, and I stop when x is 4. So it would be 1 to 4. I don't care what my graph actually looks like, but the first x value I have is 1, and the second is 4. If I was going to put this into inequality notation, I would put the number 1 less than or equal to its domain. So I put x, another inequality symbol, and then 4. Let's do another one. Again, I'm looking for the start and the stop. What do you think the start and the stop values are? It's going to be -4 to 4. Now I'm going to put this in inequality notation. What do you think that would look like? Hopefully you said -4, less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 4. Let's do another one. What are the start and stop values for my x? Hopefully said from -4 to 3, and what would be my inequality notation? It's going to be -4, less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 3. Okay, let's take a look at when we have different types of circles. I'm going to be referring to this first one as closed, as it's filled in, and this one as open, as it's not filled in. Closed just means that this x value is included, and this means that it's not included. Okay. So when they say what is the domain, still talking about those x values, but to show that one of my circles is open or closed, I'm going to use a different type of inequality symbol. So I'll give you a little cheat sheet before I let you search the choices. A closed circle always talks about symbols that have a line underneath, because that means or equal to or included. If it's an open circle, I'm going to have inequality symbols without the line underneath, meaning that it's less than or greater, it's not equal to. So if I'm still starting at -4 and ending at 2, which choice do you think goes with this graph? So this is actually going to be choice C, because I have a closed circle here. That symbol goes with a closed circle. And then I have an open circle here, and that symbol goes with an open circle. So I have closed on the left, open on the right, and choice C matches that and has the correct numbers as well. I'm going to make you another little cheat sheet for all the types of situations you could run into. So my first number line has 2 open circles. So what I'm going to do is, even though I know -4 and 3 are not included in the solution, I'm going to use them as like boundaries. So I'm going to say -4, some symbol, then x, and then 3. And because my circles are open, I just use less than. And that shows that my domain is in between -4 and 3, but doesn't include -4 and 3. So the only values that are, or the only whole numbers, which means no fractions or decimals, that are actually included would be from here to here. So -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Those would be part of my actual answers. Let's do the next one. I'm going to, again, include 0 and 3, even if they're not all included in the solution. So I'm going to start with 0, because that's my starting amount, and then x, and then 3, because that's my stopping amount. Now I need to include the symbols, keeping in mind that I have a closed circle and an open circle. What do you think those symbols would be? Well, my closed circle means that I have the line underneath. My open circle means that I don't. So this means closed, then open. And then for my answers that are actually included, a closed circle means that that value actually is included. So it'll be 0, 1, and 2, and then 3 is not included because of the open circle. Let's do another one. This one's opposite. I have a open circle and then a closed circle. What do you think the notation would be for the third one? Okay, so I'm going to include -2 and 4 with my x in between. And then my first symbol is with a open circle. My second one is with the closed circle. So it's the same thing as the one before, it just switched. And then the numbers that are actually included, well, -2 is not included because it's an open circle. So I'm going to do -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is included because of the closed circle. All right, let's do the last one. So I'm going to have you focus on this last one. What do you think the inequality notation would be? Okay, so here's how you do that one. I'm going to include -4, x, and 5. And I have 2 closed circles. So both my symbols have lines underneath. And these, it's going to be a lot, but I would have all of those numbers. Okay, so let's look at a graph where we have an open circle and a closed circle. So I'm going to still write this in English, and then this is just to help me out, and you'll see it's going to be a little bit different. So my starting amount is -2, and my ending amount is 4. So -2 to 4. But for -2, is that an open circle or a closed circle? It's open, so I'm going to make sure that I note that that circle would be open. And for 4, open or closed? Well, it's closed. So when I write my domain, I'm going to do -2, x, and 4. And my symbols are going to have to match my open and my closed notation. So remember, open means no line underneath, and then closed means that there is a line. Okay, let's do another one. So what are my starting and stopping amounts? I'll give you notes there. So it's -4 to 3. Do we have open or closed circles? Both of these are open. So when I write my function notation, what'll that look like? I have -4, x, 3, and open means that there's no line underneath. Okay, we're going to talk about interval notation. Now that we know how to write our domain, there's another way that you can notate for an exam or just in the world of math. This might be helpful. So I'm going to get you started on this one. We have 2 open circles. So I'm going to be using that symbol, and my numbers are 1 and 4. So I have 1, x, 4, and just like before, I'm just going to put my inequality symbols there. Okay. So if you have open circles, there's another way you can show that, and that is with the parentheses. I know it's going to look funky, but if I have round parentheses on both sides, that just means I have open circles on both sides. This will make a little more sense when I do another one. So let's look at the second example. This is a closed interval, meaning there's closed circle on both sides. Closed, which means my symbol should have a line underneath. So when I'm writing my notation 1, x, 4, what would my inequality symbols be? Well, I'm going to have 2 closed circles like that. So just like this example here, I'm going to have 1, 4. But when I have closed circles, I'm going to use those square looking brackets. They have like edges to them. So a closed circle means that I'm going to have a bracket, and an open circle means I'm going to have the round parentheses. So let's look at this all together. For that last example, I have 1 open, and then I have 1 closed. It'll be that symbol. What do you think my inequality notation would be? I'll get you started. It's going to be 1, x, 4. My first symbol would be less than. My second one would be less than or equal to. And just take a guess. What do you think the interval notation would look like with the parentheses and bracket stuff? I'm still going to have 1, 4, but because I have an open circle on the left, my left boundary will have a round parentheses, and my right one will have the square bracket. So this is telling me on the left side is open, and on the right side is closed. Let's do some more examples. This is the same thing but opposite. I'm going to help you out with this first one. I have closed, and I have open. So that means I have 1, x, 4, closed, open. What do you think the interval notation is going to look like with the parentheses and bracket stuff? So this one will have a bracket on the left, parentheses on the right. So it's closed and then open. Okay, non-end intervals. These look kind of weird. Do you know a term in math that means it goes on forever? So this goes to infinity. Infinity, it never ends. There is a way in math to show that. So first of all, I'm gonna have my regular notation here. So I do want to include x, but this is a little bit different. I don't have I don't have a start and a stop. I have a start, but I have no stop. So this is going to look a little weird because I really only need to talk about one number, and I only need to talk about my start. All right, so it has to do with the number 1, but am I looking at x values that are greater than 1 or less than 1? Looking at ones that are greater than 1. So greater. Now I have to decide, should I have a line underneath or not? Is my circle open or closed? It's open. So that means no line underneath. My symbol stays naked. Now when I want to do interval notation, here's where it gets kind of funky. I am starting at 1, but I'm going to infinity, and there's a symbol for that. Infinity. And I still do my brackets the same way. If I have an open circle, should I have a parenthesis or a bracket next to the 1? Should I have a parenthesis. And this is the rule for infinity always. Infinity has no hard end to it, so that always gets a parenthesis. Okay, let's do the last one. This one is similar to the one we just did. So I don't have a start, but I do have a stop. So I am going to involve x, and I'm going to involve the value that it stops at. But does this inequality talk about numbers that are greater or less than 4? Well, this one would be less. So I include my symbol there. And do I have an open circle or a closed circle here? It's closed. So that's why I have my line underneath. Now for the interval notation, it's going to be infinity comma 4. And what do you think the parenthesis and bracket situation will be? Around infinity, it's always a bracket, and because it's always a parenthesis, and then the 4 has a closed circle, so then I get a bracket. Okay, let's try another one. I'm going to do inequality notation and then interval notation. So I am looking for a start and a stop. Okay, here's my graph. I'll zoom in. What is the starting value and what is the stopping value? Okay, so the start would be, this is 0, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. -6, because it's to the left. And my stopping value would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, also 6. Cool. So from 6 to 6 with x in between. Do I have open circle, closed circle, or a mix? I just have closed circles. So what do you think my 2 inequality symbols should be? Yeah, I want 2 that have lines underneath. Now I'm going to do interval notation. 6 to 6. Now I have 2 closed circles. Do I want parentheses, brackets, or both? I want just brackets, because brackets mean closed. And they are closed on both sides. Let's do another one. I'm going to first do inequality notation, and then I'll do interval notation. So I still need the start and the stop. What are the starting values and the stop value for this one? Okay, so my start, I start at 0, 1, 2, 3. That's -3 because it's to the left. And then I count 1, 2, 3, 4, +4. I should keep it the same color. So -3 and 4 with X in between. Do I have open circles, closed circles, or both? Just open circles. So what would my inequality symbols be? Just like that. That means open. These are open. Now I'm going to do interval notation. -3, 4. Do I want parentheses, brackets, or both? Since they're both open, I want 2 sets of parentheses. All right, cool. So now we're going to do one that has an infinity in it. We have our starting value here and no stop. So what is the starting value of this graph? Our starting value is 0 and there's no stop. So I'm going to mention 0. I'm going to mention X. And do you see an open circle here? Now there is no open circle here. So I'm just going to have my inequality symbol for values that are greater or equal to 0. If there's no open, that means it's equal to. So in interval notation, I'm going to have 0, comma, and then it goes on forever. What symbol do I use forever? Right, infinity. And if I have a closed circle, should I have a bracket or a parentheses for the 0? I want to have a bracket. And then for infinity, you always get a parenthesis. Okay, so I'm going to skip to the end here. Good work today. Just let me know what you thought of this lesson.